Veronica Tang from Global News. My questions are actually for Minister Morneau.
I'll take them.
Okay.
You got an opportunity to chat with the Prime Minister. I'm happy to be here for it.
All right. We've heard that the changes to the small business tax code proposals won't be announced until Wednesday. Could you tell us, please, why there's this delay, and are there any details that you could share at this time?
This is Small Business Week, and we couldn't think of a better way to celebrate that by doing what we've committed to do all along, which is make sure that we're supporting small businesses and the middle class and communities across the country. We know that small businesses are drivers of our local economies, extraordinary opportunities for employment, and significant contributors to the economic growth that matters so much right across this country. And that's why we are so pleased to kick off this Small Business Week with the big announcement that we will be lowering taxes for small businesses right across this country. This is a commitment we made in the election campaign, and it's one that we're happy to follow up on in a way that improves the system to make sure that everyone benefits in the right ways from the proposals and the measures we've put forward to encourage small businesses to grow and prosper in communities across the country. That's today's announcement, and we look forward to keeping you to stay tuned for the announcements we're going to be making in the coming days.
As a follow-up, so we know, Prime Minister, that you have your assets in a blind trust. However, Minister Morneau has not. Could you tell us, please, why that is, and are there any concerns as to the appearance of a conflict of interest?
We have in Canada a conflict of interest and ethics commissioner who is mandated to ensure that everyone follows the rules, that everything is done rigorously as a way of upholding the public trust in the most responsible way. And I can assure you that every parliamentarian works with the conflict of interest and ethics commissioner to ensure that they are doing things the right way. I can tell you that the Minister of Finance worked extensively with the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner when he came into this job and followed all her recommendations, as we expect everyone to. All the rules were followed in this case and in every case.
Next question.
Hi, Mr. Prime Minister. Josh O'Kane with the Globe and Mail. I do have a question for Mr. Morneau directly, if you'd be able to answer one. He is right
Yes,
there.
we have to ask a question of me first, because you get a chance to talk to the Prime Minister.
Yeah, exactly. Why, having had these conversations with the Ethics Commissioner, why didn't Mr. Morneau put his substantial holdings in a blind trust to insulate himself, much like yourself?
The Ethics Commissioner works with all parliamentarians who consult with her to ensure that what they are doing meets the highest standards of integrity and responsibility that all Canadians expect of parliamentarians. And the Finance Minister followed exactly every recommendation that the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner made to him. That is what people expect of our parliamentarians, and that's what they expect of our ministers. Sure, Bill, what's your question?
Why did you not choose to put your assets in a blind trust?
Well, I think the Prime Minister said it well. We've got a system that encourages people who've done other things in life to come into public life. And we've got an approach with the Ethics Commissioner that allows people to lay out their assets, to listen to the recommendations of the Ethics Commissioner, and then take those recommendations. And that's exactly what I did. I disclosed all of my assets to the Ethics Commissioner. I listened for what the best way to ensure that I wouldn't have a conflict of interest would be, in her estimation. And then I moved forward and I complied with that approach to the letter. And what I can tell you is that I will continue to do that. This process includes an annual review of our assets. Should the Ethics Commissioner recommend to me in future that I would have a blind trust as an alternative, I would be happy to do that. What I've done so far is exactly what the Ethics Commissioner suggested I should do to ensure that I'm free from conflict of interest. This is really important work we're doing. What we're talking about today is helping small business owners across the country. I feel privileged to have the opportunity to do that work, and the only way I can do it is if I can make sure that I follow the rules that we've laid down rules that are intended to allow us to get at the work that Canadians elected us to do.
Thank you, Minister.
En français, ce que je peux dire,
What I can say is that in my point of view, it's really important to have a system for people who have already had a level of success and can continue in their objectives to have an impact on our country. This is a privilege for me, and I've decided to do something for my country with this, and we have an approach that, in my point of view, works. The commissioner of the ethics commissioner had an opportunity to consider my situation, and with this, I had recommendations, and I followed the recommendations of the ethics commissioner. In each case, I will continue with the same approach. Every year, I will have the opportunity to consider my situation with her, and if she asks me to have a blind trust, then that will be a good idea, if it's a good idea. But right now, she recommended for me to have an approach like the one I have right now, and in my point of view, this is the important thing. Thank you.
Hi, Prime Minister. I'm Paola Riggio for the Canadian Press. You've now further widened the gap between the highest income tax rate and the small business rate. Is that not just more encouragement for rich people to qualify as small businesses?
On the contrary, we want to encourage people to become entrepreneurs, to start small businesses, because we know small businesses are at the heart of the success of our economy. It's extraordinary to see the impact that a small family business like this one has, not just in the community, but on the overall economy as we add up the hard work of millions of Canadians from coast to coast to coast. What we laid out very clearly, and what I said many times in the run-up to the last election, was, yes, we believe in lowering taxes for small businesses, but we need to make sure that the wealthiest aren't using private corporations as a way of paying lower tax rates than middle-class Canadians. We are now moving forward with a process where we are confident that we can reduce small businesses for hardworking Canadians right across the country, small business taxes for hardworking Canadians right across the country, without exacerbating existing unfairnesses or even increasing existing unfairnesses within the system. We know that for 10 years, we had a government before us that believed that the best way to grow the economy was by giving advantages and tax benefits to the wealthiest Canadians. Well, that didn't work. Under Mr. Harper, we had the lowest growth rate since R.B. Bennett. What we've seen over the past 2 years is our plan of putting more money in the pockets of the middle class every single day through a Canada Child benefit, through lowering taxes for the middle class and raising them on the wealthiest 1%. And now through cutting taxes for small businesses while making sure that the wealthiest aren't using the system to pay lower taxes than the middle class, is exactly the way to grow the economy.
You also promised to waive EI premiums for small businesses that gave first-time jobs to young people, but that hasn't happened yet. Do you think that's still warranted, given that the economy seems to be booming?
We are very proud of all the investments we're making in young people. We've doubled the summer jobs program. We've invested significantly in the youth employment strategy. We've made it easier for young people to go back to school with 50% increase in grants to middle income and lower income families. We're going to continue to look for all sorts of different ways to encourage young people to be successful, because we need our young people to be successful, not just today, but tomorrow as well. So we're always open to looking at different ways of encouraging young people to enter the workforce successfully. Right now, we know that small businesses paying lower taxes is going to allow them to hire more young people, to hire more people to be successful in their companies, and I'm very excited about that.
Last question, please. Merci.
Hi, Murad Hamadi, Maclean's. On the topic of income sprinkling, is there any plan for a carve-out or to look at the issue of spouses who may not work in businesses day to day, but support entrepreneurs outside the office?
we understand how important it is that family members be allowed to contribute to growing a small business. This is a perfect example of a family that's rolled up its sleeves and working very, very hard to create a success that does well for them, but serves the community and all the employees as well. We know that it just isn't fair for some companies or some individuals to be able to take advantage of income sprinkling when others, because their kids are the wrong age or because they're not married, wouldn't. We believe in fairness in our tax system. That means everyone having the same kinds of opportunities. Of course, people who contribute to growing the business, contribute to the business, will be able to be adequately compensated, appropriately compensated. But we're trying to avoid a measure that has been used by a very, very small number of people in ways that it certainly wasn't intended to do.
Sorry, as a follow-up, can you define what you mean by contribute to the business?
We are going to make sure that there is a simple and clear framework through the tax code that will define how people are contributing or not to the business. That will be made clear as we move forward.